Before I start, if you like real stories told by the man who lived them, quiet revenge, calm voices, no screaming, just consequences, go ahead and subscribe and stick around. These aren't fairy tales. They're warnings. My name is Alex, I'm 52, and the night my wife told me, "Where I go is not your business," is the night I stopped being her safety net and started being something else entirely. At 2:17 in the morning, my phone lit up with 18 missed calls and a string of messages that would have broken the old me. The man I used to be would have jumped in his truck half awake. No shoes, no plan, just blind panic. The man I'd quietly become just watched the screen glow in the dark and let it all ring out. But that night didn't come out of nowhere. You don't go from "I do" to "not your business" overnight. It happens slow, drip by drip, like a leak behind drywall that rots the house before you ever see the mold. I've spent 30 years working with steel. You learn to see small cracks before they turn into failures. Funny how I caught the warning signs in skyscrapers faster than I caught them in my own marriage. I'm a metal contractor by trade. Structural work. Big stuff. The kind of jobs that turn empty lots into skylines. My hands look like I ran them through gravel. My back sounds like popcorn when I get out of bed. But I've always been a provider. That's what I knew how to do. Get up, show up, and bring money home. We bought our place in a good neighborhood outside Denver almost 15 years ago. Decent schools, cul-de-sacs, manicured lawns, everyone waving at each other like a commercial. I paid the mortgage, cut the grass, fixed the leaky pipes, hung Christmas lights. My wife, Megan, turned it into a magazine spread. She was always good at that: colors, candles, throw pillows that cost more than my boots. We were married 23 years. The first 15 were simple. We weren't perfect, but we were us. Date nights at mid-range restaurants, Sunday morning pancakes, her complaining about my boots by the door, me pretending not to hear. Then about 2 years ago, the air shifted. It started with little phrases. "You don't get how ambitious people think, Alex. You're comfortable. I'm trying to grow. At my level now, I need to be around driven people." The words "my level" stuck in my head more than I wanted to admit. We used to be on the same team. Suddenly she was talking like she'd been traded to a better one. That's when I first heard about him. Ethan Cole, her new boss. Visionary, according to her. Self-made millionaire. Sharp, intense, intimidating, but in a good way. I've met those types on job sites. Men who stand around in clean shoes pointing at things other men build. Megan started going on client retreats. Weekend strategy offsites in the mountains. She came home with nicer clothes and a new laugh, one I didn't recognize. She upgraded her wardrobe faster than our cars. New dresses, new heels, new perfume I wasn't allowed to complain about because every successful woman invests in herself. I didn't say anything. I just started noticing. Her phone used to live face up on the counter, screen wide open, random Pinterest boards and recipes. Now it lived face down. Screen locked, notifications off, bathroom trips with the phone in her hand. That was new. Late one Thursday, I was out of town on a night shift pour. We finished ahead of schedule, and I crashed at a cheap motel 4 hours from home. Around midnight, my buddy from the crew, Jesse, texted me a picture from downtown. "Isn't this your wife's office?" he wrote. In the shot, I saw the lobby of a fancy hotel I'd never been in. A woman who looked a whole lot like my wife stepping into an elevator in a dress I'd never seen, next to a man in a tailored suit whose hand sat a little too easily on the small of her back. The photo was blurry, lights streaking from the movement, but my stomach knew what my eyes were still trying to negotiate with. I didn't confront her the next day. I tried to. Stood in the kitchen, coffee in hand, looking at her while she talked about how exhausting her client dinner was. I heard myself ask, "What hotel was it?" and heard her answer, "The Hyatt by the airport," like she'd practiced it in the car. The problem with working with steel is you know how much weight a lie can carry before it fails. That one was too light. A week later, I got my confirmation by accident. I came home early from a job because a crane delivery got pushed. I didn't tell her I was coming. Part of me wanted to surprise her with takeout. Part of me just wanted to see her without the performance. I walked in quiet. Her car was in the driveway, but the house felt different. No TV, no music. Just her voice from the dining room, tight and low on speakerphone. I stopped in the hallway, just out of sight. Old army habit. You learn how to be present without being seen. This weekend is locked, she was saying. He thinks I'm at a leadership retreat in Breckenridge. I told him it's mandatory. He's too busy with his little projects to question it. I heard a man chuckle through the phone. Smooth, practiced. Your husband sounds like a very useful man, he said. Let him build his bridges and pour his concrete. We'll enjoy the view. He's not built for my world, she answered. He's fine, reliable, but you know how it is. After a while you want more. I thought I'd feel heat in that moment. Rage, fire. Instead, something in me just cooled, like someone closed a valve. I put the takeout on the bench by the door, backed out as quietly as I'd come in, and sat in my truck for a long time with my hands on the wheel, watching the porch light glow like nothing had happened. That night, instead of drinking or yelling or doing anything foolish, I texted an old friend from the service. Marcus. We'd shared a tent, bad coffee, and worse decisions in our 20s, and he'd gone into private security work after. He called me back on the first ring. Talk to me, he said. No hello. I told him enough. Not everything. Just enough for a man like him to understand the shape of what I was dealing with. He didn't give sympathy. That's not who we are. He gave information. What he could do. Who he knew. How easy it was to sit in a hotel parking lot with a long lens and time. You sure you want to know? He asked me once. Knowing changes things. I looked at Megan sleeping next to me, her phone on the nightstand, screen dark, turned away from me. I already know, I said. I just need proof. So we started there. Proof. While she talked about late nights with the team, Marcus collected timestamps. Photos from garages and side entrances, little digital receipts that didn't care about the story she told. While she gushed at dinner about her brilliant boss, I quietly moved our savings out of the joint account and into a business account attached to a company I'd registered months before but never told her about. Carter Steel Fabrication. I'd set it up originally for tax reasons. Now it had a different purpose. I checked the deed on the house with our lawyer. My name. Only mine. I'd bought it before we were married, refinanced it once, but never added her. At the time it hadn't meant anything. Now it did. I paid off the truck. Paid down the last of a credit card she didn't know about. Opened another one she did, left that one for her to use. I let her charge dinners, dresses, work shoes that looked a lot more like date shoes. All of it became data. Numbers in a ledger I was learning to read with new eyes. And through it all I stayed quiet. No accusations. No midnight interrogations. Just a man drinking his coffee a little slower, watching the way her eyes flicked to her phone every time it buzzed. The night everything really shifted. It snowed. One of those heavy Colorado snows that muffles sound and makes the whole street look peaceful and clean even while you know people are still doing what people do behind their doors. She came down the stairs in a dress I'd never seen before. Dark green, low cut, sharp shoulders. Her hair was done like she was heading to an awards show, not a planning retreat. She smelled like expensive flowers and lies. Big night? I asked, keeping my voice mild. She didn't look at me when she answered. Company leadership weekend. You know this, Alex? I told you. Right? I said. The one in Breckenridge. With the team. That made her glance up, just for a second. And I saw it, that tiny flash of irritation when someone asks a question too close to the truth. Don't start, she sighed, grabbing her clutch. You know how important this is for my career. I studied her for a long beat. The woman I'd married would have been nervous about leaving in a storm. This woman was vibrating with anticipation, not fear, excitement. I guess she took my silence as permission. She was almost at the door when I said, "Text me when you get there. Roads'll be bad." She stopped, hand on the knob, and turned just enough for me to see the fire in her eyes. Not the good kind, the cold kind. "Where I go is not your business, Alex," she said. Every word slow, sharp, chosen. Not anymore. Then she opened the door, let in a blast of cold air, and slammed it hard enough to rattle the frames on the wall. I stood there in the quiet, looking at the place where she'd just been, feeling the echo of that sentence bounce around inside my head. Not your business. I washed the one coffee cup I'd used, turned off the kitchen light, went upstairs like a man done with his day. I didn't pace, didn't stare at the window. I showered, pulled on an old t-shirt, and lay in bed on my side of the mattress. The house creaked under the weight of the snow on the roof. Somewhere a plow went by, low and distant. I must have dozed, because when the first vibration started on the nightstand, it felt like it came from inside a dream. The room was dark, the only light the small rectangle of my phone screen. Megan's name, 2:17 a.m. incoming call. I watched it blink. One ring, two, three. I didn't move. The call dropped. A second later, it started again. Then again. A rhythm. Desperate. My screen filled with her name, over and over, stacked notifications turning into a column. The old me reached for the phone in my head, threw on jeans, grabbed keys. The man lying in that bed just looked at the screen and heard her voice from earlier. Where I go is not your business. The 18th call buzzed against the wood and went to voicemail. New messages popped up one after another. Please pick up. I need you. Something's wrong. I'm scared. Answer, please. I stared at the words until the light began to hurt my eyes. Then I picked up the phone, held it in my hand for a moment, and slowly turned it face down on the nightstand. I woke up at 6 to the gray light of a winter morning and the sound of my garage door opening. She came in through the laundry room, the way she always did, heels clacking on tile like she was trying to announce her arrival to the empty world. Except this time she didn't walk in tall and confident. She stumbled. One heel was broken clean off. Her hair was a mess, mascara streaks on her cheeks, dress torn at the shoulder. The kind of look that doesn't come from a fun night. The kind of look that comes from something going wrong in a place where you thought you were safe. She froze when she saw me in the kitchen drinking coffee. I didn't say anything, didn't get up, didn't ask where she was. I just looked at her, waiting. She stared back like she was seeing a stranger sitting at her table. Alex, she breathed, voice cracked. I called you, over and over. Why didn't you answer? I let the silence sit, let her feel every second of it. Then I lifted my mug. You said where you go isn't my business, I said. So where you ended up at 2:17 a.m. wasn't my business either. She blinked, like the words stung, like she never expected them to come back around. Something happened, she whispered. We had a fight and he just left me there and the roads were icy and my phone died and You're here now, I said, cutting her off. Looks like you made it without me. Her face twisted, part shame and part fury. She wanted a fight. She wanted me to yell, demand answers, show jealousy, prove she still mattered. But I just stood, rinsed my mug, and put it in the sink. I walked past her toward the living room and she reached out like she wanted to grab my arm, think better of it, then followed me. What is wrong with you? She snapped. Why are you acting like this? Like you don't care. I sat down on the couch, opened my laptop, and looked at her, calm, controlled. Maybe I'm finally acting like you. She opened her mouth, closed it again, then stormed upstairs. I heard the shower run, heard drawers slam, heard her cry, then stop herself. She thought that moment would be the turning point, the wake-up call that made me beg for answers and pick up the pieces. She didn't understand something big had already snapped into place inside me weeks ago. After she left the house again, different clothes, hair still damp, I texted Marcus. She's getting sloppy. His reply came a second later. Perfect. That's when we moved from evidence to strategy. Marcus came by that night. We sat at my dining table with 2 laptops, a binder, and a thumb drive full of receipts. He laid things out the way only a man who's seen too much can. Photos of her boss's car at hidden entrances, screenshots of hotel charges, phone logs, messages from an email address she didn't know I had access to. Then there were the files, the ones I'd left out on purpose in my home office. Not real accounts, not real numbers, fake documents dressed up like real ones, just good enough to tempt someone who wanted information. Megan had taken the bait like it was candy, forwarded everything straight to her boss. Marcus tapped the folder. That's corporate theft, he said. Federal. And if he used company funds for personal trips, that's criminal too. He looked up at me. You don't need to hit her. You don't need to scream. You just need to let this play. The funny thing is, I didn't feel revenge in that moment. I felt nothing, just a cold clarity. The same feeling I get when I'm inspecting steel beams and I know which one has to go before the whole frame fails. The next morning she started round 2, the guilt phase. Breakfast was suddenly ready before I woke up. She kissed my cheek like she hadn't left me hanging in the dark. She asked about my day like she hadn't told me my place in her life was irrelevant. I played along, ate the pancakes, kissed her forehead on my way to the truck. She thought she was fixing something, but the truth was, I'd already sent everything to a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. Lisa Grant, the kind of attorney corporate sharks fear and judges listen to. I walked into her office with a folder of evidence and one sentence. My wife's cheating, and she's involved in something bigger. She flipped through the pages slowly. No shock, just calculation. You documented all of this yourself? Some. And a friend helped. She nodded. Your house is in your name only. Your accounts are separate. You're going to be fine. She slid the folder back to me and leaned forward. She won't be. That was the first time I heard the full plan. The kind of plan that doesn't just walk away, it closes every door behind you. We talked for 3 hours. By the time I left her office, I knew the end wasn't coming someday. It was already happening. That weekend Megan claimed she had work dinner. I didn't challenge it. I just followed her car, not too close, not too obvious. Not alone. Marcus was 2 streets over in a separate vehicle, watching with military precision. She parked behind a high-rise hotel downtown and walked straight inside with her boss. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Marcus texted me photos. Time-stamped. Location locked. There she was at the bar. Then at the elevator. Then stepping into a room. I drove home slow. No music. No thinking. Just a quiet acceptance. The next day, I turned on the security footage I'd installed in the house a year ago when she asked for it. She didn't know the cameras backed up to an offline drive. I watched her walk around our home like it belonged more to her than me, touching things I built, standing in rooms I paid for, packing a suitcase for a man who wasn't her husband. Something about it made the decision easy. I spent the next week preparing my life for a future without her. Changed passwords, opened a new account, transferred every last dollar I intended to keep. Then I walked into the kitchen where she was scrolling her phone like always. We need groceries, she said without looking up. Pick up salmon on your way home? I looked at her, at the home we'd shared, and I saw something simple and true. She didn't fear losing me. She feared losing the lifestyle I gave her. I said okay. And that night, instead of groceries, I bought a fireproof safe and locked the rest of my documents inside. 2 days later, Lisa called. We're ready, she said. All we need is the final piece. What is it? A witness, she replied. Someone close enough to see the truth. Megan provided that herself. She waltzed into the kitchen that evening wearing red lipstick and a new coat. I'm going out, she said. My voice stayed calm. With Ethan? She froze for half a second. The kind of freeze you only see if you're paying attention. Don't wait up, she added. And she walked out the door again without looking back. Marcus texted me the moment she stepped into the hotel. Got her. And I just sat there on the couch with one clear thought running through my head. Not your business. I didn't call. Didn't check on her. Didn't track her phone. Instead, I waited for the moment she would come home again. And the moment she did, everything would change. The day everything came to a head didn't look dramatic from the outside. No storm, no shouting, no confrontation in our kitchen. Just a corporate fundraiser at a hotel downtown where the important people gathered to congratulate each other on being important. I knew Ethan's wife would be there. I knew Megan would too. She spent more time on her makeup that afternoon than she ever did for me in the early years. New black dress, gold heels, perfect hair. She didn't notice I was watching from the doorway. You look nice, I said. She barely glanced over. Professional image matters in my world. There it was again. My world. Her world. 2 separate universes that no longer overlapped. Be careful driving, I told her. Roads are slick. She rolled her eyes and walked out the door without kissing me goodbye. I stood there for a moment, looking at the empty space where she'd been. Then I grabbed the folder I'd prepared for weeks, put on my jacket, and drove to the same event. I didn't walk in through the front. I didn't need a ticket or an invitation. All I needed was the confidence to look like I belonged. Years on job sites teach you that. It's the same attitude that gets you into places you were never really meant to be. The ballroom was full of glittering dresses and dark suits, wine glasses clicking, a string quartet playing music no one was actually listening to. Ethan stood near the center of the room, smiling the smile of a man who believed the world owed him admiration. Megan was beside him, laughing at something he'd said. She didn't see me at first, but Ethan did. His expression changed the moment our eyes met. Not fear, recognition, like he knew the game was ending. Megan turned her head and froze when she saw me. "Alex?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "What are you doing here?" I didn't answer her. I addressed the woman beside Ethan, his wife. She was elegant, controlled, a woman who'd been walking beside that man for a long time. "Mrs. Cole," I said, offering her the envelope in my hand. "I believe this belongs to you." She took it, confused. "What is this?" "Proof," I said. "Proof of everything your husband and my wife have been doing for the past 7 months." Megan reached for the envelope, panic flooding her face. "Don't. Alex, please." Ethan stepped forward, trying to play the part of the confident executive. "This is not the time or place." "It's exactly the time and place," I interrupted. "You said where you go isn't my business. Tonight, it's everyone's business." His wife opened the envelope right there in front of the whole table. The first page was a screenshot. Megan's 18 missed calls at 2:17 a.m. The second was a photo of her and Ethan entering a hotel room. The third was a printed email Megan forwarded from my home office. Confidential documents she stole. You could hear the room change. The music kept playing, but the conversation died around us. Ethan's wife looked up slowly, not at me, but at him. "How many?" she asked. He didn't answer. He didn't get the chance. Lisa, my lawyer, stepped forward. I hadn't told Megan or Ethan she'd be there. "Mr. Cole," she said calmly, "you're being investigated for fraud and unauthorized use of company funds. I suggest you speak to your attorney immediately. Mrs. Carter, you'll be receiving your notice of charges tomorrow." Ethan tried to bluster. Megan tried to cry. I didn't do anything. I just watched as the world they'd built on lies cracked right down the middle. It didn't take long after that. Ethan was fired and indicted. Megan was named as a conspirator and an accessory. The affair that was supposed to be a romantic escape turned into evidence. The house stayed mine. The business stayed mine. Every dollar she thought she could use to start a new life with him disappeared behind a wall of legal documents. She tried to fight the divorce. Tried to guilt me, threaten me, cry. Nothing worked. By the time the courts finished, she was left with a single checking account and a family too embarrassed to take her in. I changed the locks and gutted her walk-in closet, put in free weights and a rack, turned her office into a library, turned her bathroom into a sauna, scrubbed her out of the house so completely it was like she'd never existed. And then one night, months later, Megan came to the door. Her hair was flat, her clothes cheap, her eyes hollow. "Alex," she said, "I need your help." I didn't open the door wide. "Why?" "They're charging me. I could go to prison. You have to tell them I didn't know what I was doing. Please. I'm scared." I looked at the woman I once promised my life to and felt nothing. Just peace. "You told me where you go isn't my business," I said. "So where you end up now isn't my business either." She started to cry. Real tears. Or maybe just panic in liquid form. "I loved you," she whispered. "No," I said. "You loved the life I built. And someone else took it from you." She reached for my hand and I stepped back. She had one last sentence left in her. "You're cruel." "I learned it from you," I told her. And I closed the door. That was the last time we spoke. I rebuilt my life from the ground up. New jobs, new contracts, new friends. A new woman who knows where she stands and doesn't need to lie to get there. Funny thing about starting over, it doesn't feel like a reset. It feels like relief. If you're still here, listening all the way to the end, subscribe. I've got more stories. Not about revenge. About consequences. And about what happens when you stop chasing people who already chose to walk away.